I've worked in civil law and criminal law and mass tort law and several other smaller aspects of the law. I worked on one of the largest lawsuits in US history, which was the BP oil spill litigation. Obviously, I'm here to teach legal English. So I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years now. And I like to say a little bit about myself is that I love the cinema. I love to travel, or at least I used to while we still could. And I am a strong supporter of the Liverpool Football Club as something that is irrelevant completely. Let's get going. What we want to do is take your legal English and simplify it. We've all seen legal documents that are an absolute mess of confusing legalese and complicated structures. For example, take a moment and read this sentence and try to understand what they're saying. Does anyone have any idea as to what this sentence is actually saying? And I do understand if you don't want to speak out loud, we do have the chat window here on Zoom. So if you want to comment there, that's an easy way to participate and make our class a little bit more fun. So do please feel free to put answers in the chat window. But this complicated mess of a sentence really just means one thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we took, I don't know, it felt like 50 words and made it into 7. Obviously, this isn't very well written, and I wouldn't recommend writing this way to people. But that's writing this way to people. But that's no, I could hear myself there. That was strange. Who is unmuted?
Oh.
Okay, we're back. Let's talk a little bit about how to write out numbers. This is a simple thing that we should all know because we write a lot, and numbers are often important in what we're writing. But the question is, when do we use the digits, the integers, and when do we use the word? Generally speaking, we'll spell small numbers. Anything lower than 10 should be spelled out. Now, beyond that, there are many rules that are a bit convoluted and inconsistent. Your law firm may have a style guide that tells you exactly what they want you to do, and you should always do that. But there are no other perfect rules around the world. I like this one in the second bullet point here that says that one-word numbers should be written out. Two-word numbers should be the numbers themselves. So 12 or 20 or 30 or 40, feel free to spell those words out. But 24, for example, you would use the number. I don't know what they do in India with the thousands marker in numbers. In Europe, they use a period for the thousands marker and a comma for the decimal marker. In the US, they use exactly the opposite. What do they do in India? Can anyone tell me?
They follow the American style.
Okay, good. So we're at least we're all talking the same way. Thank you for helping. So yes, you know what we're doing there. Europeans would not generally, but it's a small adjustment to make. Never start a sentence with a number. As this says here, spell out the word 7 years ago instead of using the numbers. All right. When we're talking about centuries or decades, we should spell those out. I like this next one, and I've never thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense. If the number is a rounded number or it's estimated, always spell it out. You can look here and see that the two examples they have, one makes sense and looks proper, the other is confusing. So that's one thing to consider. You should never write two numbers next to each other. I think we've all done this at some point in our lives, but we should never do it. And the rule that we provide here I like is you write out the number with the fewest letters. And the number one rule with numbers in your writing is to be consistent. In the same sentence, in the same paragraph, in the same document, be consistent. That is very much a rule for writing generally, and any rules we're going to apply. But here with numbers, we should always be very consistent. It's very important. Okay, moving on. Your turn to try and help out with some of these tricks. And I really truly hope somebody will jump in and try to answer one of these five. What is wrong with how the numbers are presented? If you don't feel like speaking out loud, feel free to write an answer in the chat window. I will call on people if I must, but I really dislike doing it. So what is wrong with the way they have presented 351 people attended the performance?
They have started with the number.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Aha. And in the second one, they should have used the digits instead of words. Arshika, is that how I pronounce your name? I'm very sorry for.
It's Archika.
Archika. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. That is correct. Very good. And we will move through this relatively quickly. So let's try to answer it. What about this one here that says?
Quick question, Jeff. What's wrong with starting a sentence with the numerals?
What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
It's a rule of English to not do so.
Okay.
Do you have something else to add?
No, I'm just wondering about that. If there was a rule or not.
Yes, these are fairly well accepted rules. Let's look at the fifth one here, the one that says the stock deal, which involved a $4.5 billion paid a 12.5% dividend. What's wrong there?
Consistency?
Consistency is part of it, yes, but they're looking to do 12.5 as a number. I'm looking at the answers. Yes, correct. The chat is everything is very good with the chat. Whoever, you're doing very well. Excellent work. Wow, we are moving through our time relatively quickly. I hope that's okay. I have 5 more of these to look at, but I might skip these for right now. We'll have some other exercises later, but we'll skip this one for right now. I think you guys get this, and we can move right into the good 10 tips for strong legal writing. All right. Tip number 1, say what you mean and mean what you say. Lawyers like to be kind of cute with their words, and we like to play games with language. And sometimes that works very well to our benefit. Other times it can be confusing to the reader, and it can be overly complicated. So I think one of the most important rules that we set out is to avoid writing with legalese or lawyer words. I think we all know what lawyer words are when we see them, and I think we'll talk about them a little bit more later, or definitely in other classes. But we try to avoid them, even though look, we're lawyers. We like to feel like we're smart. We like to feel like we're accomplished. So we like to show off with our big words and our fancy Latin phrases. But at the end of the day, if you're talking to a client and you want them to accept an offer, don't beat around the bush, and you should just say, I think you should accept the offer. We have a few tips that can help you accomplish this. One is to choose the word that most clearly conveys your meaning. In English, words have many types of meanings. They have the denotive meaning, which is the descriptive dictionary definition of a word. And then we have the connotative meaning, which is what that word means on an emotional level. Think about these words: slender, thin, and skinny. They all mean pretty much the same thing if you were to look them up in the dictionary. But if you think about them in a little bit more meaning-based way, they all have slightly different meanings. So what we want you to do is to think about the best words that you can use to convey your meaning. Again, this will be covered in other classes, some good words and some words to avoid. Unfortunately, we don't have time today to go through everything. We'd like to, but this is something to think about. Always try to use the word that most clearly conveys the meaning you intend. One rule that we recommend you follow, and it's a basic rule of English, is to always follow the words this, that, these, and those with a noun. What happens if you don't? These are two unclear examples. I do not want that. But that fails to tell us what you do not want. Same with, I will take this. In conversation, we can use phrases like this a lot, but we have conversational context. And that's what makes this a little bit different. In writing, you always need to follow these words with a noun. So, I do not want that book, or I will take this dog. Good. Okay. Clear and straightforward language is exactly what I'm talking about when we want to avoid legalese. And I think we all write emails or letters, and like I said, we try to sound smart, and we use phrases that we've seen before in emails or letters or memos or briefs. These phrases that sound lawyerly, they are lawyerly, but they're confusing. So for example, let's not use sentences like, it has come to my attention that there is a vast proliferation of undesirable vegetation surrounding the periphery of this facility. Instead, let's try to use language like, I have noticed many weeds growing around the building. And I'll stop here for just one moment because I forgot to say this at the beginning. If I'm going too fast, or if anyone has any questions about anything at all, whether it's content or vocabulary or anything at all, please do stop me. I'm here to help you and to answer any questions you might have. There will also be a question and answer session right after this if you have questions. But also with this number of people, please feel free to stop. If it's a quick answer, I'll give it to you. And if it's not a quick answer, I'll defer till the end. All right. So we have a task. We're going to try, I'm going to ask you how we can simplify these common lawyer phrases. And I hope you've seen these in emails or letters before. I certainly know I have. Pursuant to your instructions. Somebody tell me a clearer and easier way to express this. As per your instructions. Good. I like that. It's the same number of words, but shorter letters. And that's good. How about as instructed? There you go. Yes, very good, very good. Bravo. Let's try another one. Reference is made. Usually you'd hear this too. Reference is made to a case or a statute or a memo or something. Any guesses, anyone? All right, I'll help you out. I refer to. Yes, there you go. Thank you. I missed your chats. I'm sorry. Very good. Very good. Enclosed herewith, please find. Yes, very good. Please see. There's a number of versions of this. We could say, I attach. And I'll take a quick poll here. You can say yes or no in the chat window. Who has seen these kinds of phrases in their daily work? Anyone? Thank you. What about, it would be highly appreciated if? What's a better way to say that? This one's pretty easy. Oh, I'd be grateful. I like that. How about something even simpler? Please. Yes, there you go. Somebody got it right as I hit the button. Very, very nice. If you're asking for somebody to do something, please really is the best word that we can use. Overly flowery language, there are appropriate uses for it. But generally speaking, we want to steer clear of it. How about this one? Please do not hesitate to contact me at any time should you have any further inquiries. Good. Please call if you have questions. Yeah, there you go. Excellent. And again, I'm sorry if I'm going too quickly. We have a lot of material and I want to get through as much as possible. I hope that's all right with you. You guys seem to be keeping up pretty well so far. All right. All of that was just rule number one, if you can believe it. That's a problem. We have to start moving. The good news is the last few rules are fairly quick. Edit and then edit some more. I can't tell you how important the process of editing your writing is. We have more than one class on editing alone. And there are people out there that have this magical gift of writing a first draft that comes out perfectly. Most people, myself very much included, are not that person. So we have to go through the editing process. And there's so much when we write a first draft that is either inappropriate or unnecessary or just wrong for the letter. So editing is the one thing that spend some time doing it. It will help you out. And many of our rules actually involve the editing process. As to how I do it, I often write, if I'm writing a long email, let's say it's a page or 2 pages, I write out a first draft as fast as I can and then go back and clean it up, sometimes more than once. So editing, we want to focus on how important the editing process is. We each have our own systems, we each have our own styles, but you want to make your document tight and short as possible. Lawyers are busy and we don't have time to waste reading unimportant words. So how do we do this? We eliminate unnecessary phrases and redundancies. For example, we will be home in a period of 10 days. What part of this is unnecessary? Yes, exactly right. The period of is unnecessary. We can simplify it by saying, we will be home in 10 days. Nice. We can also shorten word phrases when we're editing to help get our document, our sentences, our paragraphs shorter than they were. John will let me know in the event that he can get away and make the trip. That is a bit wordy, and there's, I don't know, it feels like 15 words, and they're all about 3 or 4 letters long. What's a better way to say this? That is exactly right. John will let me know if he can get away and make the trip. Oops, I meant to go back. Apologies for the preview. John will call me if he can go. Yeah, some of you guys are doing a great job on the chat, and I appreciate your participation. Thank you. All right. Filler words are things that we use all the time, especially in a first draft. These are the kind of quick edits that we can make after we complete our draft, and we can clean up so much space and make our text clear. I said that I was tired can be turned into, I said I was tired. I got up on the ladder can be turned into, I got on the ladder. And I'll show you the third one. Good. Just letting everyone read all that stuff so you understand. Good. Those words, we use them in conversation casually, and sometimes they fall into our writing. And so when we do write, it's important that we cut them out because they're very unimportant. They don't add anything to what we're talking about. All right, number 3. This one is a rule that I use. I used it when I went to law school. I used as a lawyer, and it's very important for me when I'm writing something important. We all have emails that are not important. We all have quick notes that we just send out the door without worrying about the grammar or anything. But there are other documents that we really need to spend some time with. Court documents, complaints, filings, anything I write to a judge is the kind of thing that I want to read it out loud, as ridiculous as it may make you look. And there's a couple good reasons. This helps with grammar. When you read it out loud, you will pause naturally where a comma is. And if there isn't a comma, you'll read and find that there's something wrong with that sentence. We don't do this sometimes when we read silently in our heads. We scan the words and we get the meaning and we move on. That's good. That's good for meaning, but it's better to have to read it like you're a newscaster on television. That's what I always say. Get out there and say like you're reading the news. And if you run into a problem, if you have an unnatural pause, if you have other problems with the structure, reading it out loud will absolutely reveal them. And then it's easy to fix. Same thing with missing information. I'm sure you have all written a sentence and come back later to it and realize that you forgot a verb or a noun or a word that you may have intended to write it down, but somehow it wasn't there. So
actually, Jeff, you sound more like a sportscaster than a newscaster. A good one, though.
Well, I do have a background in the theater, so I do know how to project my voice. Every good lawyer should know how to do that. So let's see. So yes, if you have an important document and you're sitting around worrying about whether it's ready to send or not, print it out, read it out loud. If you have a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, read it to them and they'll tell you where you've made a mistake. Again, I realize this can make you look a little bit silly sometimes, but you will catch several real problems with your writing, and you'll also tweak your writing to make it better. I know this is a silly recommendation, but if you try it, I think you will like it. Rule number 4, cut, cut, cut. I thought we already covered the editing process though, and I don't know how this is any different. It's not. It's the same rule twice. It's so important we put the cutting part of the editing process in this text twice. I like the example here on our PowerPoint. We don't need to say, it is uncontested that the hat on the plaintiff's head on the day in question was blue in color. Just say, the plaintiff was wearing a blue hat, or Joe was wearing a blue hat. Simplicity works. Now, as a practicing lawyer, I'm sure that some of you are thinking, wait, hold on. If we tell people exactly what we're trying to do, then they'll figure it out, and that won't be good for me or my client. And yes, I agree with you. Sometimes we write things to conceal information. Sometimes we write things to convey information. And we need to adjust our tone based on the needs of the document. So that's one thing that that you have to think about first is, what is this document? Who is reading it? And how do I need to write for that person? We have an entire class on knowing your audience and how to determine how to write to a person. And we hope to see you again for that class. But we're trying to cut things down here, simplify for the most part, especially with clients. If you have corporate clients, they're advanced and educated people that you can speak with as a lawyer. If you have a poor indigent client, you may have to speak in more simple terms. Anyway, let's move on. Number 5, vary your vocabulary and syntax. Every person I know, every writer I know, myself included, has a bucket of about 100 devices that we use. There's not a right list of things to use. There's not a wrong thing, a wrong list of phrases and idioms and words to use. But we all get bogged down with what we're most comfortable with. And unfortunately, when we get bogged down, that can make our writing boring. And at the end of the day, the last thing we want our writing to be is boring. So if we change that up, if we use different vocabulary, different sentence structures, and we mix up our language, it not only conveys what you want to convey, how you want to convey it, but it will keep your reader much more engaged. It's an important tool, and to me, this is one of the more important rules, and it's one of the more difficult rules, because like I said, we all have our writing style, and we all think our writing style is good. What we want to do is mix that up a little bit. There are a lot of tools to help you do this, and it's just about spicing up your words. Like I said, if you don't vary your syntax, if you don't change the way you write, it will start to sound like a robot wrote it, like it's stilted. And if you have sentences that are all the same length, and you'll have paragraphs that are all about the same length, and these will end up starting to sound, again, like a robot wrote it. We're trying to add a little flavor to your writing. Most English language grammar is based in subject, verb, and direct object structure. But there are a lot of really, really valuable ways and devices to mix this up to make it more interesting. And I think that's an important tool that many lawyers fail to grasp. We try to write, and we're trying to convince somebody of a point. And so keeping that person's interest is one of the most important things. I think we've all read a document or two. There's some sarcasm there because we've probably read thousands of documents that we would consider boring. And I certainly wish people had written things more interestingly. Something to strive for. That's all I'll say. Let's see here. Rule number 6 is related in a way, and it's don't assume that you have a captive audience. People skim emails, especially. I can tell you myself, I get an email, even if it's an important email, and I skim the whole thing so quickly that I miss important details. By changing up your vocabulary and your syntax and your style, and I would argue sometimes even the design of the document, it can help keep people's attention. Sometimes when we're reading things and we see a chart or a graph or a photo even, those things grab our interest and hold our minds a little bit tighter. Now, I'm more than aware that photos or graphs or charts aren't always appropriate in legal writing, and I know that. But things like that, I'd like to get you all to start thinking of different devices that you can use in your writing to keep people's interest. Like I said earlier, most firms these days have a style guide, so your firm may require certain devices and tools, and they may have some recommendations of their own. And of course, always follow what your partners say. That's the golden rule at our company. And I've had partners myself. I understand sometimes they don't always explain things in the best way, They're always right. But I always recommend you should try to make your writing as interesting as possible. That doesn't mean that it has to be confrontational. That doesn't mean that it has to be combative, but you can make it interesting. There are ways to use this with narrative tools like using a chronology to explain what a series of events. That's what I used as a lawyer a great deal in my writing, because it allows a time-based history of a sometimes year-long process. Chronologies are good to help keep your audience captive. Rule number, oh, actually, we're moving on here. So I'm sorry, I skipped a page. Justice Scalia from the US Supreme Court, who died in 2016, I've disagreed with him in almost every way on a policy basis, but I will defend his amazing writing above anything else. He's entertaining and interesting. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to read this paragraph and see what they do to keep your interest. I know it's a little long, but I'll give you a minute or two, and if you want to throw something in the chat window or speak up, these are the things that I like to talk about. So read this and let me know what you think about how he wrote this to keep your interest. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Does anybody have anything to say about that paragraph? Does anyone find it entertaining for a US Supreme Court opinion? The use of quotations to emphasize certain words. Yes, I think that's part of what he did. The way he wrote it was almost to pose some ridiculousness in these terms like psychological coercion. I like this sentence, this short sentence that he uses, but interior decorating is a rock hard science compared to psychology practiced by amateurs. There's a sarcasm there that many people would find inappropriate from a judge, but it does make you want to read on. It makes you want to read what he has to say. Yes, again, very nice. Trying to make the picture larger than it seems. He's exaggerating in many ways. Yes, it's yes, exactly. Ad absurdum. Isn't it absurdio? My Latin is a bit rusty. Josh. But this is how writing in a legal context should be. If I could write like Scalia, I'm sure I would be somewhere else right now. And I do recommend, if you're ever bored and want to read some entertaining legal opinions, look up a Justice Scalia opinion or two. They are very, very entertaining. All right. If no one has questions, we'll move on to the next rule. And I like this one. Pretend that you're writing to a friend. Uh, I understand some of these feel like they overlap a little bit, but you do. You want to entertain and inform and enlighten. You don't want to. You don't want to make them read something that's a punishment. Um, Now, when I say pretend that you're writing to a friend, that doesn't mean that I'm telling you to write to a very casual friend in a very casual way. The formality of what you're writing is based on a number of other factors. And I'll plug one more class. We have a class that will discuss formality in writing versus being informal, the right time, the right place. Uh, but we can write a formal letter to a friend. We can write, think of maybe your grandparents. If you would write a letter to your grandmother, you would write this in a way where you would tell them what's happening in your life. You want to make this a story. I always try to tell people, no matter what you're writing, there's a story to it. And it may feel like a very boring story. Two companies merging is not often the most exciting story in the world. It can be, but it's not always. So when you're writing, think about writing to a friend and communicating the story that you want to communicate as if they were a friend. I believe we have one more Scalia quote here that I'd like you to take a moment and read and see how he phrases this. I'll almost say it's more casual, like it was to a friend, but I'll give you a minute and then we can discuss. Yes, that's very good. He does make it sound dramatic. Uh, like you could see this being almost a scene in a movie. It's it makes you I want to know what the next paragraph is. Yes, you visualize, you see what's happening, and I think that you see this as him trying to really tell the story of what's happening. Again, with a bit of sarcasm. I think maybe a lot of sarcasm. Uh, but the way he writes, it's still formal. It's still lawyerly, and that's important. But you don't see uh, forthwith and here within those legal words. Actually, there is a henceforth there, isn't there? But generally speaking, he avoids those kinds of devices. Okay, we're doing great here.
I really liked how he connected the historical law from another country that with the modern, showing that this whole discussion is something that's really not even particularly relevant to nowadays, and was made by like a monarchic type system hundreds of years ago. I really like that connection.
All right, well, look at this. We only have about 10 minutes left, and that's good news. We only have 3 rules left. So I think we're doing pretty well. These are actually pretty short. But before we get there, I'm going to ask a very, very small favor of all of you. And that is to, in the chat window, please write your name, law firm, location, specialty, and just for me, your favorite movie. We would love to keep in touch with you and let you know about other classes and opportunities that we're going after. I personally would also love to know your opinion of this experience, since we are just starting this course, and we want to make this as beneficial for you as we can. So if you have tips or suggestions, we want to hear all of them. But if not, we hope that we can get in touch with you and stay in touch. We're doing this every week, and I think these 1-hour sessions, we can really get a lot done. All right, rule number 8, use short sentences. This also ties with the varying of your syntax and vocabulary. I'm not saying to use short sentences all the time, but a short sentence following long sentences can create real impact. Sorry, I lost my beat. Using short sentences instead of long, complicated sentences can convey the point of a message so fast. As you see, she lied. That is as strong a sentence as anything. And if you were to say what she had said, and then said she lied, that's a short sentence that says everything that it needs to say. We as lawyers very much like to overcomplicate sentences and make them long and dramatic, and sometimes it's better to break up a long sentence into 2 or 3 or 4 shorter sentences. It's all about how something reads. So if you were to follow my earlier rule to read something out loud, you'll find yourself pausing on a short sentence where you don't on a long sentence. And that pause can cause immense impact. Something to consider. It's something to try to do when you're writing. All about impact. Rule number 9, and again, this is much like reading aloud, is proofreading. And this is the most boring part of your experiment. We all make mistakes. And Microsoft Word is good, but not perfect. Reading things over, reading them out loud helps with this. Sometimes having your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend read it as well helps. We all get stuck sometimes. We all spend too much time on a document. Maybe we've been working on it for weeks or months. And there can be a big error right in front of your face, but you miss it. You just skip over things. Proofread. If you submit something to your partner or to a judge or even to a colleague even, where you make dumb mistakes, it makes them think less of you as a lawyer and as a writer. Of course, if you're writing your friend next door and you want to go grab a beer, you don't need to worry about this so much. But if you want to have an important discussion about an important subject, really be careful. Really be careful. And believe it or not, we're on our last rule. And it's on some documents, on some writing missions, let it sit overnight. I think the best example of this is if you've ever written a very angry email, if you've ever told off somebody or been angry, hopefully you don't send that email right away, and you take a step back, you take a deep breath, and you read it again, and you realize, oh no, I've gone way too far. Sometimes it doesn't need to be overnight, but definitely take a step away from whatever you're writing and step back, come back to it fresh, and you'll see it with new eyes. Again, on simple, non-important documents, this isn't so important. On many documents, probably the majority of documents that we see, we have to respond in a few minutes or a few hours. So we can't do this. But on big documents that are very important, if you have some kind of government filing or court documents or anything that will be permanent, it's better to step back, walk around the block one time and come back to it. And you'll see it differently. And there you have it. Look at that. We got through everything. I was afraid we wouldn't get through everything. Those are 10 rules. This was a more general class. Our future classes are going to be more specific in nature. Josh may send out a topic list in the near future. But we are here now for the next few minutes to answer any specific questions you have. Or if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. So I've been talking for a while. I'm starting to lose my voice, as you can probably hear. I thank you so much for your attention and your participation. And I hope you show up next week again. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything at all?
Yeah, Jeff, thanks a lot for the session. I mean, I'm getting a lot of feedback in my private chat with people who are giving me their information and things like that, because I'm obviously the host, and so I'm catching all that. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of very interesting movies that people like. Of course, we have to introduce you to Bollywood. Which are some of the greatest stories and amazing sets and things like that. But we see some movies. I've seen some movies that you might like. Just to throw this in there.
Yes.
I've seen Avengers,
Cool.
Endgame. I've seen one I really like is what is it? V for Vendetta. It was a really
that's a good one.
Yeah. And let me see. So some interesting ones I'll have to go through. Quite a lot of details. A very active group in chat today. And please, everyone, make sure to let your HR person know if you're not here individually, if you're here on behalf of a law firm. Let your HR person know if you like this class. If you want to take further ones. There is a list. There is a list on the link that I sent. I sent out a link in the chat, and it has all the future sessions. I think next week, Jeff, is about knowing your audience, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and there's good stuff about memo structuring and about other things, increasing your speed and accuracy. So we've tried to get a lot of good topics that are standalone topics. And if you can't join a session, there will be repeated sessions sometimes. So you join a session, you drop in, you have time, and then you enjoy it, and then you get something out of it. If you can't, you don't lose anything. And the firm doesn't lose anything either, because they will only pay a small fee for people who actually show up and not, and so nobody loses any money, everybody wins. And so if you, if you want to take further courses, just make sure to talk to your HR person, and then the firm will be glad to pay for this. And I'm excited to come back next week, Jeff. I think I speak for everybody to say this has been a really enlightening session and a great overview of some of those key topics that we all need to practice in our in our daily legal practice.
Good. Well, if there are no questions, there's no need for you to stick around. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you again, and I hope to see y'all soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.